Let's play with the standard form of a quadratic equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Remember that we say equals 0 because we're looking for where our parabola crosses the x-axis, which is where y equals 0. Sometimes we get 2 crossing places, sometimes we get 1 crossing place where it just touches, and sometimes we get no crossing places if it's just floating above or below and never crosses. So the objective here is to solve for x, and we have problems solving for x squared and x at the same time. So let's see if we can't tame this beast. If we were going to complete the square, we would need to divide every piece of this by a, and we would get x squared plus bx over a plus c over a equals 0. Now what we want to do is subtract c over a so that we have x squared plus b over a x equals negative c over a. All right, the next thing we need to do is to get 1/2 of means times b over a. That would equal b over 2a. And so I'm going to try to do this so that I can factor this into x plus b over 2a to get that squared. But in order to do that, I need to add something to both sides here and here. I'm going to take b over 2a and square it, and I will get b squared over 4a squared. So that's what I'm going to have to add to both sides. B squared over 4a squared plus b squared over 4a squared. All right, so all of this factors into this nice little package. It equals this, negative c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. We can only add fractions together if they have a common denominator. And so I'm going to make a common denominator here. Between a and 4a squared, we need to have a 4 over here. I can do that if I multiply a 4 on the top and the bottom because 4 over 4 makes 1. And I also need to make this into an a squared, which means a times a. I'm actually multiplying by a on the bottom, so I'm going to have to multiply by a on the top. So now I have a common denominator. Let's simplify this a little bit. X plus b over 2a squared equals, and then since we have this minus right here, let's just tidy this up by writing b squared minus 4, put this in alphabetical order, ac over our common denominator, 4a squared. Okay, so we're going to take the square root of both sides, and on the left we get x plus b over 2a. And on the right, we're going to get plus or minus the square root of all of this, b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. All right, if you notice, the bottom of that fraction, 4a squared, is a perfect square. So we can write this like this. Just keep the square root on the top of this because that doesn't simplify very nicely. But the bottom of it did simplify nicely. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of a squared is a. And then let's go ahead and subtract b over 2a because we're getting the x all by itself. x equals square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a minus b over 2a. We have a common denominator there. And I missed one thing here. I don't want to lose track of my plus or minus. So here it is, and here it is. So let's go ahead and combine our common denominators. X equals, I'm going to put that negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I put that negative b first, so the plus or minus could kind of be in the middle, and also because that is the quadratic formula. X equals a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We have written the quadratic formula ourselves.